Peter, welcome to the Leading Sustainable Success podcast. For those people who be watching this perhaps for the first time and coming across you for the first time, perhaps you could start by just giving a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, well, after a first career as an accountant and a partner in one of the larger accounting firms, decided in those troubled mid-40s that maybe I wanted to look at wealth creation rather than wealth measurement.
Right.
And so started a journey which ended up with 26 years with Telos, of trying to look at organizations that have a long-term view of their role.
Excellent. Thank you. And the sorts of people that you work with in the work that you do?
If you looked at it from a sector point of view or scale point of view or geographical point of view, you'd make a complete muddle of who we're working with. But if you actually say we're working with the leader and the leaders of organizations, that probably captures the type of people we're working with. So if you can work with, say, the top 10 and help them to influence, say, the top 50, then more sustainable is to have that top 50 then actually deal with the thousands of people that are working with them.
Yeah.
So I think the type of people we work with are those that are at the sharp end of leadership and that control the destinies of organizations, whatever those organizations might be.
Excellent. And just before we dive into some of the main questions, I'll pick up on a word that you said, Peter, about wealth creation versus wealth measurement. What do you mean by wealth?
Yeah, look, as a continuing chartered accountant, I feel that I can say that accountants largely have got it wrong in defining wealth as money wealth. If you really are looking at wealth, you've got to look at all types of capital. Yes, financial capital. Without cash, you're getting nowhere. But what about relationship capital? What about social capital? What about community capital? You know, all of these things, intellectual capital, all of these things are important. And if not invested in, you end up with cash, but nothing to generate future cash.
Yeah.
So wealth, I think, is a much more inclusive word than just money.
Excellent. And that might hint at your answer to kind of the question that I'm asking everyone who's come on here, Peter, which is, what does leading sustainable success mean to you?
Well, it probably means getting a regular mental health check, because the world recognizes short-term success. It recognizes it through bonus schemes. It recognizes it through recognition schemes. It's all about the here and the now. Leading sustainable success is about understanding the future, understanding the present, and understanding the culture of the organization, the identity of the organization that helps you to make decisions about the future and the present. It's not about one or the other. So leading sustainable success is about thinking about time dimensions that are way beyond the quarterly report, the annual report, or even the 3-year report. It's what's the next generation going to worry about? What's the generation after that going to worry about? Now, what you're not doing is trying to tell them what they're going to be thinking about. What you're trying to do is to create a platform that is going to create the wealth that is going to maintain the relevance of the organization so that other people worry about its continuity.
Okay. So I guess in summary then, kind of leaving something in a better place for the next generation to then lift and take it on, I guess, really.
Oh, without a doubt. My favorite client has done 3 transformations where the organization, frankly, anybody coming in after him, if they did nothing at all, it would generate the sort of returns that were required to keep current shareholders working, because everything was done to build a system that was going to actually last well beyond himself.
Okay. And what is it in your mind that distinguishes somebody as a leader who navigates that kind of short-term pressure versus long-term focus? What distinguishes them from those who struggle?
There's got to be a sort of slightly rebellious bit to them. They're there because they're not necessarily motivated by money alone. They're motivated by building something. They've got a mission. They've got a true purpose. They're also quite often slightly unhinged.
Yeah.
I talk about the necessity for every organization, big, small, public, private, not for profit. It requires somebody that's got that sort of faint hint of madness behind the eyes, because it's not necessarily a rational thing they do. They've got something that is driving them to create something that they've seen and nobody else can see.
Yeah.
And it requires that sort of energy to maintain an organization. When an organization is facing its darkest moments, there's got to be somebody there that says, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
This is too good to waste. I'm going to make it work. I'm not going to allow it to fail.
Yeah.
So what's the type of person that does this? Yeah. They're different thinkers. They're
slightly rebellious,
highly resilient, yes, and are prepared to question the norms.
Yeah, I guess kind of pushing the bound, creating the space for the organisation to go beyond the day to day, I guess, as well. That probably brings us nicely onto the theme of the conversation, Peter, which is we've recently done our leading through volatility inquiry, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So perhaps you could give a little bit of background to the inquiry itself.
Look, Telos has been running now for 26 years, almost, 26 years.
In a couple of weeks' time, yeah.
In a couple of weeks' time, yeah. But for our 25th, we did one of our periodic surveys. We've done them before. We've published books, reflections and challenges at odd times over the last 25 years. And this one was a slightly different process because of technology. We're able to actually interview people and distill their views relatively simply and pull together some major themes. Anyway, we interviewed 25 leaders, 25 years, 25 leaders, to find out what the world was like and ask them whether tomorrow was more volatile than yesterday. And interestingly enough, people say, well, volatility has been there forever.
Yeah.
Looking back, it probably doesn't feel that way. But looking forward, there is an assumption that we are going to be living in continuingly volatile times.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Is there's no assumption of a return to stability.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that when you turn on the news every day at the moment. Yes.
Yeah. And you turn on the news and it's different from one hour to the next.
Yes, and that clearly affects people's psyche too. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about some of the themes that came out of the discussions then.
Yes. First one was that the sources of volatility are many but constant. So you've got rapidly advancing technology, geopolitics, particularly over the last few days,
Yes.
reshaping supply chains. I mean,
Yep.
you know, if you're banking on oil
Yep.
or gas at this stage, and most of us have some sort of reliance on it, that's a continuing worry. Social fragmentation. We don't go to the office anymore. We don't even go to pubs anymore. I mean, we are I won't say enslaved. We are enabled by our virtual environment that we can do whatever we want where we want to do it. We don't need other people, which is quite interesting. Customer expectations are now different. Whereas, I mean, look, back in the day, if you had a message to get across to your consuming public, you made sure that you backed yourself against the World Cup or the coronation or something and got 21 million people to sit down and watch you.
Yeah.
Now we've got an army of influencers that are out there that are enabling a reach to a much more focused audience. So social fragmentation, regulatory and cost pressures. Cost pressures are there. Regulation is not making life easier. And of course the different expectations of different generations. Now, if you take all those forces and put them all together, you've got a real cocktail of instability, which you've got to negotiate constantly. So the themes that are coming out of it, well, there they are. AI and automation is a given. It was interesting. I had somebody say to me, "I'm very concerned that I'm being fed a report that's actually being generated by AI." And I said, "And your problem is?" "Well, is my person doing their job properly?" And I said, "Well, if they're not using AI,
Are they doing
then
their
you
job
need to
properly?
worry, because then they're wasting their time." But what is important is that we've got a human perspective on the use of AI. Market geographic diversification. Look, are we at the end of globalization? I don't know, but are we more likely to look at local supply chains? Is this an opportunity now coming back into play where we're looking at local supply chains? Leadership is a theme people have identified as one of the things that's not going to change is the people-centric nature of a lot of the things we do and how important leadership is going to be in that environment. And then speed is another one. Execution quicker than competitors. It's getting there quicker than anybody else. And then, of course, there's inevitable sector-specific breakthroughs. I mean, if you're in pharmaceuticals, you're going to have rapid discovery processes. You're going to have much quicker ways of proving ideas and so on and so forth. There are some sectors that are going to be much more advanced in the circular economy. So people moving away from virgin material and looking to recover material. So that's going to have a major impact on things. So there's a whole load of sector-specific things, but the major things are there.
But quite a lot of noise, I guess, for leaders to kind of deal with in all of that. But some things, as you say, that stand the test of time as well.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing. The two things that I found particularly interesting was that each of the areas of concern was leading to either an opportunity or a risk. And so AI is an opportunity, but there's a risk, and there's a cyber risk. Is our data going to get ripped off? Are we going to get ripped off because we're trusting technology? So there's two sides to the coin. Now, if you have a positive mindset, then you're going to look for the opportunity. If you've got a negative mindset, then you're going to sort of concern and get worried about what it might do to you. Market and geographic diversification. There's a huge opportunity. New markets are going to arise, but the geopolitical instability might freeze you and stop you from investing because you can't see the opportunity. Rapid execution is an opportunity, but then the threat of cost and regulation is counterbalancing that. So, can I get there quicker? Can I do it properly, regulatory wise, and so on and so forth? But the thing that constant, the thing we ask people, what won't change, and everybody comes back to the people bits. That's it. We may have redefined roles. We may have redefined our relationships with customers and whatever, but the humanness is going to be a continuing theme. Positively, human-centric leadership. I'm going to release the potential of my organization. Negatively, I've got, oh my goodness, I don't understand Gen Z, let alone Gen Alpha. I mean, they don't want to do what we want to do, so it's a problem. Well, it's a choice you have to make, and I think that's something we've got to wrestle with: is do we approach the future with a positive mindset, or do we approach the future with a negative mindset?
So kind of generally outside of that kind of mindset, then, Peter, from the people that you're working with, how are you seeing these themes either create greater impact on them and leaders responding to them either through more that positive response or where they're starting to struggle? So how are you seeing this hit leaders and their organizations?
Every organization is going to be different, and I think it's up to each organization to decide for themselves what the future is going to look like relative to their past. But I think what is going to be important is that each leader or groups of leaders ask these questions of themselves. And they'll ask those questions before they get unduly influenced by any one stakeholder group. So I think that in order to make sensible decisions in this environment, it's what have we got to do to actually make sure that our purpose is fulfilled, and what have we got to do with each of our stakeholders, including our shareholders, as to what we're going to deliver. Because currently, shareholders themselves are going to worry about volatility. And most of the shareholders are you and I through the pension funds. So, we've got a societal need for responsible leaders to get hold of this and look at their business models and see what's what. So when we see in today's Financial Times, I believe there's a piece there with one of the accounting firm's senior partners saying, there's no place for partners in our organization unless they understand AI. And we are going to need to reinvent our model, because the concept of a leveraged consulting team going into an organization those days may have gone. Now, if you're forced to keep an old model while you're thinking about these things, it could actually threaten your future. So a partnership like that can actually got the freedom to be able to think about it. But if that had been a PLC with institutional investors, there's quite a path to go if you're going to change your business model.
I mean, there's a sense of I don't want to maybe get tied into the stewardship and ownership agenda there, but there's a kind of a dual responsibility there, isn't there, about, from owners and leaders, I guess, from that perspective of thinking beyond the here and now.
I think that's right. I think that investors behaving as owners as opposed to investors behaving as investors is going to be an important component part. So many people would say, oh, private equity bad. Well, hang on a minute. Private equity, used properly, has got much more of an ownership feel than many of our PLCs have. But I mean, this is not me damning any one particular type of investor, but I think we need to understand where we fit in the value creation chain. And how we're going to do it, and whether we should have an ownership say, or whether it's just we're investing and we're therefore passive to somebody else's views.
And I mean, obviously, a lot of this stuff is live and happening as we talk about at the moment. But where are you seeing kind of leaders that you're working with make progress, and where are you seeing others get stuck, perhaps, as they're dealing with all of this noise?
Well, I think people have been dealing with noise for some while. I mean, it's just got accentuated over the last few months. I think the wise ones are actually not making rapid decisions. They're actually starting to look at the fundamentals of the business and making sure that their fundamentals are suited to the ongoing volatility. I think it's interesting that people are dialing up innovation, which is quite an important component, particularly where it's rapid change that they're dealing with. So how to speed up some of the things that we used to do over months and years? How can we do things over weeks and months? So I think now's a decent time, I think, for every organization to check, one, am I still relevant to the society in which I'm so is my purpose still something worth
we still got a fundamental problem to solve.
Or as my it's okay it's okay that if my purpose is fulfilled, let me stop that and go and find another purpose. So it's a fundamental, but then how adaptable are we, how attuned are we to future trends, and how can we understand what's going on out there on a day-to-day basis? This is not storing it up for a strategic study that we're then going to go away for an away weekend and work out what we're going to do for the next 3 years. This is what are we going to do next week, what are we going to do next month, and so on and so on. So there's that. Is our economic model currently robust enough to be able to provide the cash that we need to keep fulfilling our purpose? And in our purpose, are we all clear about that purpose and the humanness of the organization, the identity and who we are and why we're here? Those sort of key questions. I think it's a good practice to revisit that anyway, but now I think it's essential.
Yeah, you reminded me of a conversation I had with someone when we did our last inquiry in the pandemic, and faced amid the lockdowns, the various lockdowns, and the crash of the economies at that point. He sat with his leadership team and said, "What's our purpose? How will we keep our people safe?" And from that, their strategy and their actions, that basic conversation, how will we live our values? So that the actions kind of came from there, I guess.
Absolutely, and the authenticity of the organisation is tested in these difficult times. But authenticity, I think, is going to be a massive influence on the way people trade in the future.
And especially I think as you see more and more AI stuff created, people and misinformation, but who and what do I trust becomes a key thing.
Absolutely.
Lovely. And where people are calling you in to kind of come and help and work with them at the moment, Peter, what are the sorts of things that you're finding yourself being asked to do and support clients with in these current times?
Do you know, the first thing that this is happening right now, is don't panic. You know, don't. This is not. Yes, we've got to get somewhere rapidly, but don't make stupid decisions too quickly. Let's make sure that we are checking in with the things that are important, challenging things that we might have assumed in the past, and enable ourselves to move forward. I think my standard response to this is, look, you may not have participated in this survey, but there's some questions. Why don't you spend some time with your team answering those questions for yourself? Because it ain't going to be right for everybody. Everybody's going to have a different take on it, as did the respondents to this survey. But it was incredible that of such a small survey, 25 people, and not all in this country, came up with very similar themes.
Yeah, it's not surprising, but very interesting indeed. You may have answered this in your comments here, Peter, but the kind of, I guess, my final question really to you is, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, as you said at the start of the conversation. You've seen lots of different dot-com bubble bursts. You've seen the Northern Rock crashes. You've seen the pandemics, all around those sorts of things. When leaders are facing into this volatility, what's the one or two bits of advice that you would give to them?
I think there's a leadership fundamental here that I think is probably worth just leaving this as a thought. The types of leader that others will follow, and I'm borrowing from Tim Spiker's book, The Only Leaders Worth Following. And he says there are two things two main features that enable people to follow a leader. One is that leader is self-sufficient. They are comfortable in their own skin. They're secure. They're financially secure. They're physically secure. They're mentally secure. They have 2 feet on the ground, and there's some stability. And they use that stability to focus on other people. And I think if you've got that sort of leader at the heart of an organization, then a lot of these questions get answered much more easily than if you've got somebody who's concerned about their future, concerned about what other people are going to think about, concerned about their financial position, etc., and therefore are unable to spend their time worrying about other people. So I think my final thought would be that the more volatile the environment, the more important and the more invisible the leader becomes.
Excellent, Peter. I think that's a great place to leave it here. Inwardly sound and others focus. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Adam.
Stopping recording.